What's up, Patreon? Welcome, welcome. Let's get some music going. There we go. Welcome. I'm going to show you guys a breakdown of this Simone Biles graphic. I made it based on some inspiration from Carol Blanchette. I do not know how to pronounce her handle, but you can find her on Instagram and Twitter. So I wanted to do this breakdown just for you guys on Patreon. So here's the final design here. You see we've got our layers over here. So I'm just going to hop right in and show you what I did to make this design. So most of my designs start off with some sort of hierarchy composition. So I've got, this is the sort of composition. Let me get rid of that. That's going on. So I knew what I wanted was I wanted Simone's head. So I wanted a sideways photo of her head. So I found this really nice photo. It's cut out, a couple edits to it. Let me open this up actually, because there's a ton I did to this photo. Let me delete some stuff that we don't have on. Shoot, hold on. Let me delete anything that is hidden. All right, so I'm gonna hide everything I did up here to show you this photo. So this is the photo. Can we even see these? Yeah, okay. So I have some of her hair cut out in the back. So the original photo looks like this. So it's Simone looking to the side. You can't see her iris or her pupils at all because she's looking way left. So I had to add that in separately. But you can see her hair back here. She's got a ponytail and, it's dark hair on a dark background. So to fight that, I just sort of used... I think I used the pen tool and I cut this out sort of like this, and then I added back in with a brush to add back in some of the natural edges to what hair would be. So this is the first edits I did. I did some usual edits that I do. I don't know what this does. Oh, this is adding some purple back into her eyes. Hue and saturation on her teeth and her eyes, brighten them up a little bit, make them real white. And then, some of this stuff I don't really know what it is. So this is fixing some of the edge. This is me adding an iris into her eye. So I found this photo. Oh gosh. So Simone looking to her right. So I just took part of her eye, masked it to this area, and then brightened it up a little bit so it looked natural as if she was looking to the side. This is a bit of a high pass filter, which I could just do down here, but this is set to overlay at 100% to add a lot of sharpness to it. And then it's just little things to tweak stuff, fixing a little bit of the eye there, adding a bit of an ellipse that's blurred for a spot highlight. So that is the photo of Simone. I then took that, did a lot of camera raw to it. I made it super gritty. And I think I did that because in the end I made it black and white. So I have this gradient map on it. So it adds a lot of detail. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to have her silhouette, and then I wanted to have sort of a double exposure of images on her. So I darkened up most of the image that we have and only have her face being shown. I then have a couple of layers, curves to brighten up the edges. This layer to add in more purple, the purple hue. And then these are background images that I will add in later and show you. The background is just very simple. It's just this photo paper texture set to 50%. And I just have a vignette added to it, and I have it duplicated, set to multiply at 20%. So I just have a very light, subtle texture in the background. So let's hop up here and see what we start doing. So for this, we have 3 images of Simone. Now, if we look at something Carol Blanchette has made, so let me actually just pull her Instagram up, because it's going to be easier for me to share that with you and tell that with you, or tell that to you. My internet's going very slow for some reason. I do not know why. But everything's like crazy slow. This is Caroline Blanchett. If you want to follow her, this is who I would follow. But again, for some reason, my internet is incredibly spotty. So one of the images that she found, or that I based this off of, she had a little athlete below and then two above it. I'm gonna let this load somewhere else and we're gonna go back here. So I've got Simone up here, Simone down here at the bottom, smaller, and then Simone here. So the main point I wanted to show was to figure out the hierarchy of these, and I ended up choosing to make them all pretty much the same size. So these are all one part of the hierarchy. This is another part of the hierarchy here. So let's start with, let's put Simone back on. So I started with this podium Simone and this Simone on beam. So these two I played around with a lot to figure out where I wanted them compositionally. And then what I ended up doing was I put the backgrounds masked to the back, and I did that in a gradient map with a pink color. So I wanted to have more contrast, because if I just have this, there's not a lot of contrast. Or if I have just the images, you know, I wanted, if I make them a color, it fits the motif of the color here. It all blends in together as well, all into one thing. So these photos are all, they're pretty simple. Let's take a look at her on beam. So it's just one photo that's cut out. And you can see I cut out some spots that don't matter because they're being covered by this Simone. But I just took a curves layer, masked it to the inside of, or I selected this. I then contracted it a couple pixels. And then with the curves layer, I brightened it, but then I also boosted the red and the blue, and then I decreased the green, and I played around to get a color that matched sort of this pink purple hue that we had going around. So then on top of that, I just have sort of some areas that are set to screen to lighten the beam, and that's just to lighten up her on the podium. So we've got her on the podium. So this here behind her on the beam is just brightening up behind her a little bit. Let me reset that music. Music is sounding a little bit funky. Okay, so we've got the beam there, and I did the same edits for the other images. So we've got just Simone cut out. And again, it took a while for me to determine the exact placement I wanted of these players. You know, it's easy for me to say, put this here, put this here. There was a lot of, do I move it over here? Do I move it up? Do I move it this way? And these are all masked pretty much to this shape of Simone in the background. But I did paint back in areas to overlap the top of her head to make it so it seems like they're coming out of that shape. So I have the same colors on this. I think I copied it, pasted it, and just chose to make a different mask. So it's masked to just the inside of her. And then I have a bit of a shadow beneath her to make it look like she's popping out of it even more. So I got Caroline Blanchett's to open up. So here's an example of something she would make. So we've got Diana Taurasi, shape, people ghosted inside. So this was the initial inspiration for that. So Leaping Simone, I've got her in the front. You know, same thing, just a slight lighting effect around parts of her body, around the edges. I do have a bit of a blur gallery on here to blur up her arms and her legs to make it look like she was leaping. And all of these Simones have the same editing to them. I think I used just my general BJD 2 on it. I've got a little bit of a high pass overlay on here and a hue and saturation. I don't know what it's doing there specifically. But I wanted to make sure, I probably went in and tweaked some of these. Well, actually, no. So all these photos were taken at the same event. So I didn't really have to match a lot of skin tones because they were all taken from the same lighting, probably with very similar camera settings. So beneath Simone leaping, I have this diamond goat. And this is just a flare. There's a bunch of flares that I put in random spots, as you can see. And these are all on top of this group of this diamond. So I downloaded this photo of this diamond. I think I got a photo of her Leo, and I just kind of traced them around where they were on her Leo because she has a goat rhinestone on her Leo, as you can see right here. So I just sort of duplicated that here. Gave it a little bit of a camera lens correction to give it a little bit of this coloring. Otherwise, it was just pretty flat. So I wanted to add a little bit of color to it. So let's hop up here. So with our composition sound, it was just about adding some extras. So I added her signature down here. I have some overlays. You know, I've got a lighting effect. I love these lighting effects. So it's set to screen with a little bit of levels on it to make it not as foggy. I've got a little bit of a light bokeh as well with the same levels layer. I got some more lens stuff here. I think these are just me painting the pink color, set to overlay and duplicating it and setting it to screen just to add a little bit of a tint of color. And then I have some final overlays. So I've got a selective color that you can see is dulling the pinks a bit. So if we go to magenta, or where did we go? What did we tweak? I might have tweaked the neutrals. So I added a little bit of cyan to the neutrals, which is making it a little bit more blue. I've got a color lookup, which is an Ethan J design one, his teal to orange at 33%. Then I've got my Kodak 2395 set to 50%. And then I've got a final selective color, which is boosting the reds, boosting the skin tones a little bit, making them a little bit more orange. I then did some final edits. So I like to make a new file layer and then set it to a smart object with camera raw. So if we open up the camera raw settings, we can see what I did. Okay, so I boosted the contrast, decreased highlights, boosted shadows and whites, decreased the blacks, boosted the texture, clarity, and dehaze just a little bit, added a little bit of saturation. But in color grading, as a whole, I changed global to a cyan color and moved it in a little bit, played with luminance, which is giving it this blue sort of toning or tinting. I then gave it a slight vignette just to accentuate the vignette we have in the background. Added a little bit of grain. I think that's it. So you can see before, after, adding a little bit of a vignette, making it a little bit more blue. And then I just have some final overlays, which are actually the overlays down here. These overlays, the light leak and the bokeh, just duplicated on top with a little bit of curves to make them less prominent. But it's basically just hitting these little spots on the edges that might have been affected by the vignette. It's adding the lighting back to that. But that is the Simone Biles design. So it's pretty simple execution wise. You know, it's finding a sideways shot, adding some photos to the background, masking some of the photos to that clipping, and then painting out so it looks like they're coming out of the sideways shot. We have one in the front leaping with a little bit of action, some lighting effects, you know, the little goat for fun, and then her signature, and then just some global edits to just glue everything together with the camera raw. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be doing more of these videos for you guys. If you have any tutorial suggestions that you want me to do just for Patreon, that's completely fine. Let me know in Patreon or in the Discord. And if you have any questions at all about anything, feel free to hit me up on Twitter or on Discord or on Patreon. That's never a problem. And with that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks.